Home to picturesque coastal scenery, awe-inspiring architecture, a burgeoning waterfront downtown, and welcoming hospitality, Newport is considered internationally by many to be a sparkling gem in the coastal crown of New England. For those who love architecture, design, and history, Newport has beaches, opulent mansions, beautiful museums, and walking tours that reveal the colonial and Gilded Age charm that no other community in America can offer. On November 4th, Newport residents will be faced with the most important decision in the town's history. They will vote to embrace the Newport brand that this city has worked so hard to establish over the last 200 years. Or they will accept a proposal that will change Newport's heritage forever. We Newporters must face the fact that on November 4th, we stand at a fork in the road to our community's future.
A Vegas casino is no different from a New Orleans casino or a Florida casino or any other casino. This is just another casino. And that's what you're voting for. Why? Because Massachusetts might put in a casino. That's why you're voting it. You're voting against small business reform. You're voting against making the hard decisions that we've made this session count. I urge you from the bottom of my heart to vote no on this. I know some of you feel we have to do this. I'm telling you, the only thing you're doing today is voting to put an act in front of this General Assembly next year to fill in the details. That's what you're doing. And if you think it stops at the footprint, you're wrong. They'll be back. They'll be back for more. They'll be back in Lincoln, they'll be back in Newport, because those buildings aren't going to stop them. And we don't have a fiscal note on this. Again, we could lose $100 million, people are saying. We could lose $50 million if we don't have table games. But how many machines are they going to take out? They give an estimate how many machines they're going to take out to put those table games in. How much revenue is that going to generate? No one knows. What is the percentage going to be? Who are the owners going to be? No one knows. There are many questions unanswered. You are voting to throw something out and say, let's take a chance. Well, isn't that what gambling is? If you want to take a chance on all the good things that we've done this session, all the good things that we've done in Rhode Island, then hit that green tonight. If you're not a gambler, hit the red. Thank you.
As you know, there's opposition in Newport. There has been for years to expanded gambling, to any gambling. Some folks don't even want the current Newport Grand open. The woman quoted in the Journal, retired teacher who lives there, said, quote, "I think it's a morally reprehensible way to raise money for government." She says she's voting no on this idea.
By the way, she's probably right.
Now, unfortunately, all three candidates agreed on one thing, and that's that out-of-state developers have been reluctant to bid on the property because of Rhode Island's reputation for corruption. That the developers feel they wouldn't have a chance here if they didn't know which power brokers to cozy up to.
Rhode Islanders have a very weird sense of denial about the ongoing corruption in the state. And as voters, we continue to deny the damage we do to ourselves as we continue to re-elect known criminals to office. We watch nightly as the state police raid the offices at the State House, and we shrug passively as official after official is convicted of bribery and corruption. There's literally no ethics oversight in this state, and we continue to be somewhat charmed by these scoundrels. In fact, the partner for the casino in Newport is the state legislature. They receive 60% of the video slot revenues that come from Newport Grand currently, and they've become the sales team for the casino industry in this state. We continue to hurt ourselves over and over again at the voting booth. We have to stop this insanity, we have to stop this corruption, and we have to stop this casino. There's wonderful redevelopment opportunities right now in Providence. The I-95 land from the redevelopment in the area. 2 years it sits. No outside developer wants to come and do business with this state. The corruption is detrimental to jobs, jobs, jobs. Nobody knows who they need to cozy up to or how many palms they'll need to grease. Newport is just too risky, and to bring a casino to Newport is just bringing more corruption and more risk, and we don't need it.
When I read in the papers that Joe Paolino was beginning a fundraiser for Buddy Cianci, I was shocked. You know, Buddy's a twice convicted felon. Everyone knows how his history in Rhode Island. It's a sad history. It's a corrupt history. And for Mr. Paolino to make the decision to start a fundraising and ultimately with an enormous amount of money and a lot of political connections, here's Buddy Cianci leading the polls right now as mayor for Providence, and it's just, to me, an absolute embarrassment in the state of Rhode Island. So the same man who's behind Buddy is the same man trying to come down to Newport and sell us on this casino, and it's the same thing. With enough money and enough political savvy, they hope to push something that is ultimately wrong for the community. And you know, that may fly up in Providence, but I think not down here. You know, when you cross over the bridges to Newport, Newporters, they have a different set of values. I think both in the residential community and in the business community. And I think they're going to lose. I think they're going to lose significantly. I'd like to see this be a landslide victory. So quite frankly, we don't have to go through this again. I don't think the people in Newport should have to be forced to put time and money and effort into fighting these kind of influences. They're ultimately corrupt and they're wrong for our island.
Atlantic City became bankrupt, if not officially, then practically speaking. It had almost nothing going for it in terms of economic activity. And it was what I think the casino industry seizes upon, which is desperate. The whole idea was these casinos were going to come in and revitalize this dying seaside town. People were gullible and they fell for it.
In the 1950s and 60s, Newport's local economy was booming as it grew to be the second largest naval port in the United States. In the 1970s, however, we suffered quite an economic downturn when the naval fleet was relocated to Virginia. Newport scrambled to find revenue sources at that time as the Navy families departed along with the fleet. That was when the High interests came knocking. They came in promising wonderful revenues to the city, promising for a few months of the year it would be a high-life fronton, and the rest of the year it would be a wonderful entertainment and cultural civic center. Unfortunately, the civic center never evolved.
This casino is now open.
I was supportive of casino gambling in Atlantic City because I felt it could provide a catalyst to revitalize this once great resort area in the state of New Jersey. If I knew then what I know now, clearly I would not have supported it. When I look back at what happened, or more accurately did not happen, the promises never came to fruition. The revitalization of Atlantic City never came. I mean, if you go to Atlantic City today and you walk a couple blocks off the boardwalk, you still see the same decay, and even worse than when this was approved, over 30 years ago.
When casinos first came to Atlantic City, I think people were super excited there. The business owners, the merchants, everybody's all geared up. Wow, these casinos are going to bring all these people in. It's going to be a big boom for all of us. It didn't take a whole lot of time to figure this out, that it was actually hurting their businesses. The casinos are masters at sucking the people in and keeping them there and then sending them home.
Before long, 40% of Atlantic City restaurants and a third of its local retailers had gone out of business. Far from curing Atlantic City's economic woes, casino gambling made them worse.
The real tragedy, I think, of the casino gambling expansion story is that as small businesses disappear, as restaurants go out of business, as other businesses can't compete, what you have is a casino-driven local economy. Then you really are in a bind. Then what you have to do is support the one big industry in town, which is the casino, which continues to extract wealth from the community. So it's a downward spiral.
I'll never forget the time that my director gave me his philosophy or his understanding of his job. At that time, I looked at him as I wanted to see him as a mentor. But his concept was that his job, his duty, was to keep the players in this rat maze, to keep them, how can you keep them in here as long as you can? There is no partnership with the other businesses or a partnership with anything else in that sort, because it's just, the casino is meant to be the hub. It's meant to be the hub.
Expanding the gambling establishment bigger than what it is now, that is, it's not a positive outlook. It's not something that, you know, parents want to explain to their kids, or drive by and have to keep explaining to their kids, or listen to their kids say they want to go work there. I mean, nobody grows up saying, yes, I want to go work in a casino. Nobody says that. So, you know, again, that's going back to the difference between a job and a career. That's a job. Do I want to explain or have my 3 older children or my 14-year-old child go there? Absolutely not. No, I don't. It's nothing positive. I want them to focus on school, on a job that's more stable, post office, dentist, dental hygienist, anything other than something that has already been proven to be a failure.
Well, you know, there's a lot of reasons why I think this would be bad for Newport. I became most interested in getting involved with the recent effort by the pro-casino developers to take advantage of the closing of the Newport Yachting Center. You know, that was a very difficult decision for us. We reluctantly closed the concert and festival and skating business. And to see literally 3-4 days later advertisements and a press release and drawings of a skating rink and temporary tent with a concert facility and saying they're going to replace everything that we were doing was, to me, just so opportunistic and disingenuous. And, you know, I'm well aware of what it takes to ultimately build an outdoor event center, the amount of employees that it takes, the years of experience that it takes. It doesn't pop up overnight. They don't have the licensing, they don't have the planning, the capabilities of doing something like that. And frankly, I just found it to be dishonest to be able to come out publicly like that, to say that it would cost $6 million and to use it as an opportunity to grab votes. It was just, in my mind, a very deceiving thing to do. And that's when I sort of made the decision I'd like to get more involved. I'd like to get the company more involved. And so here I am.
Bob Steele is a businessman with an extensive background in government and politics. He served in the CIA and also served in Congress, representing the 2nd District of Connecticut. And he was also a nominee for governor of Connecticut. Bob has written a novel called The Curse, Big-Time Gambling's Seduction of a Small New England Town. Sound familiar? It's a compelling and epic story of politics, identity, and greed that will make you wonder where America is heading. The story leads to a small New England town that must choose between preserving its character or accepting a proposal that will change it forever. Bob travels extensively to communities faced with similar choices Newporters will have on November 4th. He volunteers his time making public and media appearances, warning of the perils communities will endure should they invite the casino industry into their future.
It hasn't raised us up, and that's the promise of the casinos when they come in. They're going to remake Springfield. They're going to do wonders for Newport. They're going to, you know, it is. So that's the argument. So the fact is that there is no evidence. Now you can say, well, why? What has happened? Well, one of the reasons is the easy money has led to profligate spending in Connecticut. There's no question about it. It is amazing now with casino revenue plummeting in so many places, including Connecticut, and more evidence of the corrosive impact of gambling on society, that you would think Connecticut would say, well, you know, maybe we better start looking from other sources of revenue. Maybe we need some more stable sources of revenue. Maybe we need to start getting our spending control under control in Connecticut. You would think that people in Rhode Island would begin to say the same thing. We're at 12%, we can't go any higher. But obviously, that isn't what is being said. I don't know, what can you go to, 14%, 16%? And the crash that is waiting just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now, what is happening, however, as in Connecticut with the monopoly over and the casino revenue declining and the jobs declining, now the benefit in the number of jobs we got initially is now down, and now it is a negative on our economy and our job growth in Connecticut.
How do we know that Newport businesses won't suffer? The casino people claim they're going to have spa, restaurants, concerts. How will that affect the businesses downtown? I personally think negatively. I don't see how it could be a positive thing. Another question is, in terms of the city of Newport getting 1.45% of the casino revenues, and the big thing is when they do $40 million of renovations, how do we know that $40 million is ever going to come? I mean, we may never see that difference. And I think that it's really important to note that half the money we get now from the casino is really from property taxes that any entity that occupies that land will pay us. I also think that I have a question, would we need more police and fire protection? Many of these things have not been vetted, no answers have been made, and the question comes down to what is good for the city of Newport.
Gambling is the industry in town, so that those casinos drive policy, and the lobbyists there basically own all the politicians. You do what the casinos say.
The problem with the casino industry, from a legislature's point of view, is that everywhere they go, they green the legislature. And the reason why they're different than other industries that lobby a local commission or a state legislature is that the amount of money they're going to gain is so fantastical that corrupting a state legislature is simply a cost of doing business.
Can Newporters really trust these developers, these investors in the casino and Newport Grand? They're political insiders. And at 2 o'clock in the morning, in the final hours of the General Assembly's session this past year, Joe Paolino was in the State House privately conferring with Senate President Teresa Paiva-Weed to marshal through the casino referendum. The last moment, language was slid into the bill that stripped the question off Newport's local ballot. Local Newport residents were irate. It's this kind of backroom dealing and manipulation of the voters' intent that is what we should be most concerned about. More than $8 million so far this year has been given to the owners of Twin Rivers and Newport Grand. And yet $7.3 million given to Twin Rivers, they turned around and they bought a casino in Mississippi. We cannot trust the General Assembly and how they're allocating our hard-earned dollars. We cannot trust these developers to not manipulate and have their influence felt while we in Newport sit and are told that this is in our best interest. It doesn't create any new net jobs in this city. It will simply pillage from the existing businesses and the locals who have worked so hard to build our brand and our image in this town. A casino is not what we want. Partners in this state need to be those we can trust and rely on. The General Assembly is a 60% partner in the casino revenues. That's the reason we can't trust them either. The deal is not with Newport, the deal is with the General Assembly. Newport's money is not guaranteed. A councilwoman even removed her support after seeing the lies being printed on the brochures being distributed for jobs, jobs, jobs. It is not creating jobs in Newport. It is not creating a healthy economy, and we need to vote no and stop the insanity.
I think for me, the most eye-opening moment in time, and we talked about this, the eye-opening moment in time was receiving the flyer at my door. It came early in the discussion process. I knew the host agreement discussions were going on. And when I read it, I was sort of surprised at what was being called out, especially the guarantees, Newport $9 million over the next 6 years, when I know, in fact, it's not guaranteed. You know, it was not guaranteed at the state level, and it was not being guaranteed in the host agreement. And I saw it as deception, and I think that was a very troubling moment to see that. And it's one thing to have voters be presented with some clear choices and honesty, but I found that very disturbing, that promise of this money that in reality was not promised.
Tony Simpson has been a member of the Rhode Island Bar and the Federal Bar since 1980. He practiced law in Newport for over 20 years. He then accepted a position on the law school faculty at Roger Williams University, where he continues to teach law. He represented the old Third Ward on the Newport City Council from 1988 to 1996. He is very familiar with the history of Newport Grand.
What the General Assembly did in the wee hours of the morning was to enact a law that deprived the voters of Newport of their constitutional right to have a local referendum on casino gambling. They said it wasn't necessary. Clarity and transparency required having only one referendum, the statewide referendum. And that's what we're going to have on November 4th. Now, I don't know what happened in the State House that morning. I'm not accusing anyone of anything, but I do know what the Constitution says. And we, in the city of Newport, are entitled to have a local ballot and have the referendum question on that ballot, and we're not going to get it. This is worrisome. Here we have a violation of the Constitution. Nobody seems to be doing much about it at the moment. I hope they will in the future. And I wonder, is casino gambling behind this? Casino gambling involves huge sums of money, more than you and I can imagine. Is this just an indication of the type of problem we're going to run into if we approve casino gambling? I'm not willing to take that risk, and I hope you aren't willing to take that risk.
What you see with casino gambling is there's a lot comes with the package. In any place that you go that this has been a premier feature to be a gambling destination, you'll find plenty of glitz and glamour, but you go just 2 blocks off of that glitz and glamour and you start seeing the heartache.
If you like crime, if you like addictions, invite in gambling, because that's what it's going to bring. Drug addiction doubles, new bankruptcies up 10 to 42%, new crime increasing 10%, and it's lose-lose.
When people financially are defeated by the gaming machine, you're going to have to pick up that collateral damage. And you'll see it in every community where this looked like it was going to be the savior and the economic boom for their community. But just go a few blocks off the glitzy strip and see what you've got, and it's pretty demoralizing.
Whenever you bring up Atlantic City or any of the other places that they've gone, their response is, well, Florida's not Atlantic City, or Florida's not Las Vegas. I mean, to constantly tell our community, don't worry, what's happened everywhere else won't happen to you, is not reassuring at any level. Maybe you are like them, or maybe everybody becomes like them once they sign on the dotted line.
Nearly 30 years after Atlantic City approved its first casino, the city remains economically and fiscally exhausted. 200 restaurants have gone out of business. It has no grocery store, no movie theater. A greater percentage of residents live below the poverty line than in 1970, while the median household income is 60% lower than the state average. Violent crime, on the other hand, is more than 500% higher. In the last 40 years, nearly a third of its population has fled. Although billions have rushed into the casino's coffers, buying bailouts and unprecedented influence, Monopoly City is on life support, kept on basic rations by the town's only major industry left standing, gambling. In Atlantic City, the gambling industry has seen its own revenues fall for 7 straight years. In the last year alone, its profit has tumbled a catastrophic 54%. With its competition wiped out, the gambling industry has begun to devour itself.
The casino industry as a whole is performing subpar. And according to Moody's, an investment rating service, the premier investment rating service, the casino industry has been downgraded from neutral to negative. The entire industry. This is pretty significant. So when the casino developers are telling us that they're going to come in, they're going to create 200 jobs, they're going to create all this stimulus, they're going to give the city of Newport $1.5 million a year for the next 3 years, another $1 million thereafter. These are promises. It may as just well be 2,000 jobs, 20,000 jobs, $15 million, because these are arbitrary numbers. If the industry as a whole is performing poorly, how can this new project expect to see the success that the promoters, that the developers are telling us that we should expect? It's just not going to happen.
The casino industry is saturated all over the Northeast. And right now, they're cannibalizing from each other's businesses, and they're cannibalizing businesses from within each community. So this is not a good deal for Newport.
These guys are experienced developers. They know how they're going to get out of this. They have an exit strategy. We don't. And if we have to bail them out, where is that going to leave us? It bothers me, and it should bother you too.
They come at us when we're down, when we're weak, when the economy is bad. They try and lure our elected officials and our voters with the promise of more jobs and bountiful government revenue.
Every time I've seen some major movement in trying to do some expansion, it usually happens in the environment where they're trying to balance the budget. And suddenly this submarine comes up from underwater of how I can solve all your problems and you can get something for nothing. That's a false promise.
This industry is to create 100,000 jobs. 70% will be minorities and women. We will guarantee half the seats of non-stop flights and charters from Asia Pacific, Europe, the export market. We're talking of 4 to 6 million visitors. I guarantee you there'll be 10 Global Express flying non-stop to Shanghai, Beijing, and to Hong Kong, okay, every day. 50, 100,000 jobs, up to 1.7 billion for the state, maximize benefits for everybody. I think everyone is a winner in this game.
It's an industry that makes its living off of convincing people to make bets. You got a very good chance of making a lot of money here. Of course, you have a greater chance of losing a huge amount of money and a bunch of other things that are important to you as well.
I'm fortunate to be a native Newporter, 4th generation. I've been able to raise a family here and been involved in many small businesses through the years. I have children and grandchildren. I hope that they're going to have some of the same opportunities and experiences that I've had in Newport. And so that's why this whole casino and expanded gambling proposal concerns me greatly. Now, I think Newport is a unique place. You know, Quintic Island and Newport, there's nothing like it. Great natural beauty, a history that's living now and goes back for hundreds of years. And it's got a very interesting and diverse community. It's been a very, very interesting place to live. And I think the citizens of Newport, all these small businesses, we've worked really hard to create an interesting and successful tourist destination, whether it's the restaurants, the small shops, the museums, the mansions. A lot of work has gone in to this town by local people to make it what it is today. And I can understand why these casino folks want to get in here. This is a great prize for them. But essentially, the casino is a parasitic operation. They want to take from us. They want to take our beauty, our history. They want to take the business from the small operator here and transform it into something else, something that's going to be out of our control. I'm very worried that we as a community will be giving up control of significant economic interests to mysterious money, and more importantly, and more frighteningly for me, to politicians upstate who are giving us a lot of promises that I have no faith in. I'm very worried about the close relationship between the developers of this project and political interests that do not seem to have the interests of Newport or Quinnipiac Island in mind at all. You know, this is not just an enhanced highlight. This isn't a highlight in fancy dress. This is a wolf in sheep's clothing. You don't know what you're going to get. There are promises being made, promises about jobs, promises about shared income with the city that I would take with the largest grain of salt possible.
Every slot machine takes in $300,000 worth of lost consumer spending per year. It doesn't create a job, they're just dumping their money into the slot machine. You dust them off and collect the money. Well, that $300,000 that's going into the slot machine, on average, per year, is not going into cars, refrigerators, computers, healthcare, and essential education and medical expenses, and that translates into one lost job per slot machine per year in the economy.
In any other industry, you create sales and you can only sell so many tangible things. But at a casino, you have to increase a person's losses. You have to increase a segment's losses. You have to increase a community's losses. That's how you succeed. That's how you make a name for yourself. That's how you get a bonus, is by the amount of losses you accumulate from your community, from your surrounding communities, from a certain segment.
I'm concerned about the impact on Newport in several ways. I'm concerned about the impact on our tourism industry. You know, we have a tremendous tourism industry that's grown up through hard work. We have small businesses and family-owned businesses that have made a commitment to Newport over a long period of time. Casinos look to take business away just by their nature and divert people who would be customers in a retail shop or in a restaurant, and they want to draw them in so that the money is spent in the casino rather than in the mom and pop shops. That's one very real concern that I have. I'd say the other concern has to do with our future plans. Our tourism industry has been great, but we have to remember that it's a 4 or 5 month proposition. And what we're trying to do as a city is develop year-round business. And that's part of the reason for the Innovation Hub. The Innovation Hub is a proposal to use land freed up by the bridge realignment to create a campus of defense-oriented and innovation-oriented businesses. We're well along the way to making this happen.
Money, and lots of it.
They try to build sort of an aura of inevitability. This is all going to happen. It's just a matter of when. And kind of deteriorate and break down any objection along that pathway.
I think this is a bunch of empty promises that can't be filled. I think this point in the game, they're just telling us whatever we want to hear to get it in there. If they genuinely had a concern for the community or wanted to improve it or bring some kind of change, they'd do it in a positive way. A civic center, something more family oriented, because that's what Newport's about.
A lot of people and business owners feel there's a lot of details that they don't know about or they don't understand. And the casino has done the folks that want the casino have done a really good job in touting that, well, renaming their cause as Newport for Jobs, or calling it an entertainment complex instead of a casino, because they're really just trying to make sure the average voter and the business community knows as little about what's in the plan as possible, because they know, once they really know, that they're not going to support it.
Miami can't handle all the poison that will come from a big international casino, whether will do a slightly better job than Atlantic City is sort of a silly point to make. I think it's a straight up and down question. Do you want to bring a toxic business into Miami that will hurt people and surrounding businesses or not?
You know, things that we had sort of a vision of 2 years ago are now actually starting to benefit, pay out. So that gives me hope that these efforts, people talk about the Innovation Hub and or in job growth, that those efforts are moving forward, and that's very positive. The other thing I've noticed too, having worked on the council now for a number of years, is every year we see less and less revenue coming in from the gambling industry. Our budget, slowly but surely, each year has weaned itself off of reliance on that. So, again, time has gone by. I can now see a budget that does not rely on any gambling revenue, and we would be fine. The city of Newport has done a good job of learning how to move forward without that reliance. So, if we did approve it, and we did sort of take a new bump of revenue, I look at it now as we would just sort of renew that addiction. We would slowly but surely, setting up for the next generation, this process of needing to move away or weaning ourselves off of the gambling revenue, because I don't really see the facility as being this money-making effort for the long haul. I think it'll do the same thing. It'll make some money, we'll get used to it, it'll sequence down, So since we're so close to being weaned off of that money, this does, in my mind, seem like it could be a good moment in time where we sort of say, we're ready to move on. And I think budget-wise, we can do that as a city.
Opening even another casino or expanding another casino is just going to deepen Rhode Island's problems. Furthermore, based on what we've seen in Connecticut, there is no evidence that casino revenue ultimately strengthens a state's or a municipality's finances. Connecticut today is in the worst financial shape in its history, with the highest debt and the highest unfunded liabilities of any state in the United States. And I know to some Rhode Island listeners that will sound impossible, but yes, it's worse than Rhode Island. So Connecticut, in addition, Connecticut has had one of the most anemic job growth rates in the entire United States since the casinos came in. So however you look at it, if you look at it from a public health standpoint, if you look at it as a social, in terms of social problems, if you look at it from an economic standpoint, casinos don't add up.
MIT anthropology professor Natasha Schull has studied gambling addiction for over 15 years. She's interviewed gamblers, casino owners, and slot machine designers.
Do you think that most people would even think that a machine could addict you, that a machine can do the same thing that a drug could?
What addiction really has to do is with the speed of rewards. And these machines, if they're packing 1,200 hands per hour into play, you're being exposed, you could see that as being exposed to a higher dose.
A higher dose, says Schull, because all that speed means more bets, and that means more excitement. And no machine is better for that than the penny slot, the most popular game on the casino floor. Because the bets are small, you can place hundreds of them at a time.
Another core aspect of their addictiveness is their continuous nature. You're not interrupted by anything. You're not waiting for the horses to run. You're not waiting for the guy next to you to choose his card to put down. There's no roulette wheel spinning. It's just you and the machine. It's a continuous flow without interruption.
I found that the machines were wonderful. I loved the excitement. I loved the people. I loved the camaraderie, the high fives when you win. It was just very exciting.
Sandy Hall lives only a short drive from thousands of slot machines in Rhode Island and Connecticut. Married with 2 daughters, she worked in a bookstore and used to look at the casinos as an entertaining break. But eventually she was playing slots so much, she burned through her retirement funds.
My every thought and every being, if I wasn't at the casino, I was figuring out how I was going to get there. Where was I going to get the money?
You know, you sound like a heroin addict.
It takes your soul, it takes your humanity. You drive home pounding the steering wheel, promising yourself you're never going to go again, you're never going to do it again. And you know that you're going down and you're going down and you're going down. I became, from a nice person, I became a manipulative, deceitful, lying person.
Lies just manufactured themselves. You didn't even have to think about it.
Marilyn Lancelot, another slot addict, ended up embezzling over $250,000 from her employer in Phoenix, Arizona.
My daughters lived within 2 houses away. They did not know I was stealing money or gambling until one day 7 police cars drove into my yard and took me away in handcuffs.
This is gambling for gambling's sake, and the aim is not to win a jackpot.
She's not talking about most people who go to casinos. She's only talking about addicted gamblers.
Are you saying that they'd rather stay in the game than win the money?
And not only am I saying that, but I found instances where gamblers who won a jackpot then became irritated because it stopped the flow of play.
Researchers at the University of Waterloo in Canada measured how players respond physiologically while they gamble, and showed that the new machines can make them think they're winning, even when they're not. The gambler almost always gets some money back. If he puts in $1, he might get back 50 cents. But the sounds and flickering lights trick his brain into thinking he came out ahead. The constant feeling of winning creates so much pleasure, says Natasha Schull, that regular players can slip into a trance-like state, a place she calls the zone.
One gambler told me that when he's in the zone, he couldn't remember his children's name.
You go into that trance, that zone, that box. Nobody can touch you. You have escaped from reality. No one can ask you for anything.
I'm opposed to casino gambling primarily because of the damage that does to individuals and families. The individuals that become problem gamblers or addicted are no longer free people. They're under an addiction, and their addiction causes lots of financial problems and human problems in the family. And so that's why I encourage everybody to vote against the expansion of gambling in Newport by voting no to Referendum 1.
Paul Carroll is the Director of Civic Investment for the City of Newport. Paul has 25 years' experience in economic and business development in the U.S. and abroad. During his tenure with the city, he has been focusing on the opportunity for economic diversification. 2 of his major initiatives are the Sheffield Tech Work Accelerator at the former Sheffield School on Broadway and the larger Newport Innovation Hub.
Take this opportunity to actually show you physically where this innovation mixed development hub will be located. As you can see right here, here is the bridge coming in, the Pell Bridge, and the highway to nowhere. This is the larger north end. The darker purple areas are the public lands that the city will work with strategic partners to bring in for the physical development. This is the bridge, the highway to nowhere, with the realignment will free up that land. Currently we're in negotiations with the Navy for potential purchase of the naval properties as well as the city yard. The larger pink area is the impact area. Currently that whole area here is zoned commercial industrial. Our goal now is to working with our contractors to look at a flexible overlay to transform this into a commercial technology zone. What's really a challenge and also a great opportunity for us is how this will interact with the various neighbors around. We want to make sure that these very strong neighborhoods in the south and the green, the stabilized neighborhoods, are not adversely affected. We need to make sure that what's going on in the base, what we do here, complements and doesn't cut off the base. And then finally, we really need to look at this area where we refer to as the opportunity area. This has the potential, with all the incredible work Newport's done, to bring this section up as it is now, to really look at how this can augment it for our housing as well as potential property values and, most importantly, job creation. The Innovation Hub itself is really an idea that came out of the 10 years work of looking at the diversification that's in Newport's comprehensive land use plan, the diversification of economic opportunities. The work on the Innovation Hub itself is about 1.5 years in the making, and we've been very fortunate to have incredible strategic partners, those being the Rhode Island Department of Transportation, Rhode Island Turnpike and Bridge Authority, statewide planning, as well as the Chamber of Commerce. And we've been fortunate through statewide planning to actually have a challenge grant and a second grant funded by the Defense Fund that's a pass-through that comes from the state legislature and is a pass-through to the Chamber of Commerce. And that's been able to fund our program in moving forward. Now, where we are here is we've created our strategic vision document. We're in the process right now of going out to a select group of developers to ask them to test that and ask them to say what would they do, what do we have right, what do we have wrong with the SWOT analysis. And then from there we'll bring those suggestions back, take a look, strengthen the vision document, and then go out. The target right now is the first quarter of the calendar of 2015 to go out to an open request for proposals for national development groups. Our grant application is looking at 5 years for 3,000 jobs. And this is from everything from people that have no skills, starting at the age of the 20 to 30-year-olds, having no skills that can actually be trained and placed. And it's very important, it's the placement of these positions. And the green infrastructure allows people actually career paths, well-benefited career paths from the very beginning. So it's similar to back in the 40s and the 50s when manufacturing, when people could go into a factory. Some people stayed right at the machine and they stayed their whole life and made a very good, benefited life. Other people in the factories went into management, went into sciences and continued their education. We see green infrastructure as a great opportunity for the diversification, particularly for young people who may feel they're being left behind in the economy. So we really are looking at the Innovation Hub to be providing from very high-level scientific engineering and design, finance, all the way through the area of people that are on the land, showing what we can do to make sure that this is a group in a community that's resilient and is really looking at the future and really is encouraged by the future. The people that we're doing this for, and I'd like to dedicate this effort, are the first graders on Aquidneck Island, this year's first graders. 25 years from now, when Newport celebrates its 400th anniversary, the beginning of a 5th century of existence, these young people will actually be the young families. Many of them will have their young children. And I have 2 wishes for all of this effort. The first wish is that as they're in their early 30s, they have the ability to choose to remain in Newport if they so choose, if they want, due to the fact of the quality of life and the quality of opportunity.
On November 4th, Newport voters have a choice between 2 competing visions for our city's economic future. One option proposes casino jobs. The other vision, developed by Newport's Office of Economic Development, proposes a future that would provide thousands of jobs to residents in the Innovation Hub campus. That is Newport's future. The choice we make on November 4th will determine Newport's destiny.
I speak from a background of having been in Newport's hospitality industry for many years. I'm the chairman of a company which operates a number of businesses in Newport that directly relate to the hospitality industry. And I think that a casino in Newport is totally unnecessary. It's not only unnecessary, it will damage the brand name that we have built over the last 40 years. A name of a very, very attractive city that has cultural, historic preservation, yachting attractions, attracts visitors from all over the world, attracts residents who want to live here because of all these amenities and facilities and services. And the idea of a casino just is a down market effort to take advantage of that in a way that really undermines the brand. They talk about jobs for Newport. There is no lack of jobs in Newport for the hospitality industry. If anything, we have as a company to go outside the community, outside the state, to find qualified people to fill our jobs. I really think that it is potentially a damaging economic investment in Newport. The casino industry is overbuilt. It is becoming intensely competitive. They're asking for tax breaks in many of the states in the Northeast. Twin River in Rhode Island asks for the state to increase its marketing budget at the reduction of the state's income. This is not a panacea for economic boom and growth in the city or the state. Point of fact, in an industry which is really shrinking in revenue, it's time for the city and the state to get off this dependence on gambling revenue. Let's start weaning away from a declining industry now, rather than wait until it falls on its own.
This is about government using gambling to prey on human weakness for profit.
Les Bernal is head of the national organization Stop Predatory Gambling. He and Massachusetts State Senator Sue Tucker have been fighting a move to bring casinos and slot parlors to the Bay State.
We're in the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. And the daily voice of government to most Americans is, we're gonna push casinos and we're gonna push lottery tickets.
Well, but you have a situation where states are desperate. They're way over budget. They have to find revenue somewhere. They know people will gamble.
As a revenue raiser, it defies every principle. It's regressive. In other words, it takes far more money out of lower income people's pockets than higher income. It is cannibalistic. In other words, it eats other forms of revenue. When you have your citizens dumping $2 billion down the slots, they're not buying a new car, and you lose that tax. Fewer than 25% of Massachusetts residents went out of state to gamble.
That's a lot of people.
75% didn't.
I know, but
that's
25%.
the group the industry wants. They want the 75% that can get on the tee and go to a nearby casino and get in trouble with gambling. That's the playbook.
I received a call from a lady. Somehow she got my extension. And I picked up. I'm like, hey, this is JT Mathis. What can I do for you? I didn't know if it was someone that worked at the casino or if it was someone. He said, will you stop? Just stop sending me these mail pieces. My husband's dead. He's gone. You guys destroyed him. Just leave me alone. You guys keep on sending this. It's already hard enough. It's already hard enough. Just leave. Just stop. That mail piece. I sent that database to the printers. That person put me as a face. That's that continuous cycle, is developing players, watching them lose their money. And then you hear about the divorce, you hear about the suicide. Then another person comes, and you gotta do it all over. That's that cycle, over and over and over, developing that player. I've looked over thousands and thousands, maybe tens of thousands of accounts. It's a lifetime loss. There's a number right in the corner that has the amount of money that the player lost. How can you recover from an accumulated nest egg or accumulated wealth that you saved for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, and you lost it in a month, 2 months, a year? How do you rebound from that? Let me just play another dollar.
There are a lot of reasons why expanding gambling at Newport Grand isn't the best thing for Newport. Now, maybe I'll just touch on two, because I'm sure that many of the people you've talked to have covered other of the aspects. Most important thing to me is that it's not the way the state should be raising money. When you've got a paradigm where your friends and your neighbors have to lose their homes and their savings so that government can fund things, that's not the way we should be doing business. There are better ways of doing that. Rhode Island needs to make a lot of economic development in its future, and investing in gambling is not the way we should be doing that. Now, we're relying on gambling for 10% of our revenue. It's a bad bet. You hear that from a lot of people. There are other opportunities for the North End, other economic development opportunities, and instead of looking to people to lose things in order to build, we should just be building new things for the city, building new jobs, things that our kids can go to college to come home to do for us. The other thing I talk about is we don't need it. We are already a place that people want to come to. Newport's a special place. I'm not a Newporter, can't claim it, wasn't born here. 30 years doesn't really make me a Newporter. But I could have left Newport a long time ago, and I didn't, because I've learned to love Newport for what it is. And we don't need a casino to make it any better. A casino is going to make it less. So it's easy for me to oppose this issue because it's not what's going to make us better, and it's not the way we should be raising money to invest in ourselves in the future.
Life in Newport is oh so grand, and Newport Grand now hopes to expand. They want table games and a convention hall, a spa, entertainment, and a boutique mall. It sounds so grand, but Newport beware. Things aren't what they seem, something's foul in the air. Our state politicians are hungry for cash. They invest our taxes in things that will crash. Gambling brings crime and embezzlement. We're left with addicts whose money's been spent. If you fall into debt, the owners don't care. They make their profits off of people's despair. We had a local vote, but it's been taken away by late night dealings that smack of foul play. They promise us jobs, but their motive is clear. Just follow the money, their words aren't sincere. It's time to end this Monte Carlo show. For the love of Newport, just say no. For years we fought to vote gambling down. It has no place in our historic town. The time has come again to take a stand. No expanded gambling at Newport Grand. So fellow Newporters, let's get out the word. Vote on question 1 and make your voice be heard. It's time to end this Monte Carlo show. For the love of Newport, just vote no. It's time to end this Monte Carlo show. For the love of Newport, just vote no. It's time to end this Monte Carlo show. For the love of Newport.